Okay, and welcome back, students who are taking Math for Business and Finance and Math Applications, and we are working on the Chapter 22 Summary Practice Test Problems, and we left off from the last video on number 2, so we're working on number 3 here. Okay, and let's see here. This one here, it says here, this semester Lee Hung took 4 3-credit-hour courses at Riverside Community. So let me just flip back. And let's see here, where did they have the credit? Okay, so drill problem 22-5 is very the drill problem is very similar to this one because it's calculating the grade. So if you don't follow this, go back and watch that particular video. And if you still don't understand something, feel free to give us a call. Okay, it says here Hung Lee took 4 3-credit-hour courses at Riverside Community College. She received an A in accounting and C's in history, psych, and algebra. What is her cumulative grade point average, assuming A is a 4, C is a 2, and that's to the nearest hundredth? Okay. So let's see here. All right, so accounting. She received an A, right? And an A is equal to 4 points, so 4 times and it's 3 credit hours. Okay. Now the reason, remember that when we're trying to figure this out, because our credit, our grades are different, even though they're all 3 credit hours. Oh, actually, let me get back to that. Let me just do it this way first, okay? And I'll point something out to make this a little bit easier. So 4 times 3 is 12, because we're looking for, like, in essence, a weighted average here, okay? History received the C, right? So that's 2 points times the 3 credit hours is 6. Psych received the C, so that's 2 points times 3, that's 6. And for algebra, 2 points times 3, and that's also 6. Okay, so we add those all up. 18 and 12 is 30. And since we're talking about 3, 6, 9, 12 credit hours, okay, we take the 30 and we divide it by 12, and that gives us, let's see, 2 is 24, that's 60. 2.5 is our grade point average, GPA. Okay, 2.5 is the GPA. So 30 divided by 12 gives me a grade point average of 2.5. Right? Now, this is what you want. You do really kind of like need to, and I'm getting back to what I was going to point out before. When you're doing this, definitely multiply this stuff out. Okay. Because even though that they're all the same credit hours, okay, you could have arrived at the same thing by saying, okay, because they're all the same, what you could have done is you could have taken the 4 points, the 2 points, and that comes out to 10. And you have 4 subjects, so you could have divided the 10 by the 4 and still came out with a 2.5 GPA. Okay, and the reason for that is because all of my subjects have the same number of credit hours. So I really didn't, in order to do this, I really didn't have to do all of this multiplication math. All right, all I needed to do was just add up the points and divide it by number of subjects because they're all the same credit hours. However, let's say instead of having a instead of accounting being 3 credit hours, let's say it was a 4 credit hour course. Okay, now you actually have to do all of the math. All right, you can't just, because the weighting of the accounting is different than it is from history, psych, and algebra, because it's 1 extra credit hour. So you actually have to do all of this math in order to be able to calculate your GPA. So for this particular problem, yeah, I could have done it the long way, which is doing it this way, multiplying the points times the credit hours, and then adding up all the credits to get 30, and dividing it by the number of credits of 12 and getting 2.5, right? I would definitely have to do this if my credit hours were different. They weren't all the same. But if I have a bunch of subjects which they're all the exact same, in this case 3 credit hours, then I didn't have to do all of that multiplication math. Okay? I didn't have to do all of this. Because they're all 3 credit hours, all I need to do is just list all of the points, which gives me 10, and divide by the subjects, the number of subjects, which is 4, and I would have ended up with the same GPA of 2.5. Okay? But that's only because all of them are 3 credit hour courses. If you had one subject that was not a 3 credit hour course, then you have to do all that additional math. Okay? I hope you understood that. Number 4, Pete's Variety Shop reported the following sales for the first 20 days of May. Prepare a frequency distribution for Pete's. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Okay, so as I'm scanning through all of these here sales, okay, I'm just looking at all these numbers. Notice they're all hundreds, right? So I could take my sales here, and that's 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, and 700, right? Because there's between 1 and 700. Now I do a tally. Right? So I would end up tallying, and I'm going to say, okay, I can go and actually go, like in this case here, I could say this 100, that's there. 100, that's there. 200, that's there. 100, that's back up here. 400, that's down here. 6, 6, and 6, 1, 2, and 3. There's another 6. 300, 700, 100, 400, 5 and 5, 7, 6, 7, 2, and 700. Okay, and now that means now that I've got my tallies, remember the tallies are basically just an intermediary step in order to find your frequency. It's not, because you have a bunch of data, okay, and you're just tallying them up to be able to see what your frequencies are. So this case here, 100 is 5, 200 is 2, 300 is 1, 400 is 2, 500 is 2, 600 is 5. Oops, made a mistake. Can't count 4 up here, sorry about that, and 700 is 4. Okay, and of course if you add up all of the frequencies, they should equal all of these data points. Would I have done it that way? I mean, that's one way of doing it, okay, but I could have just as easily gone and went and said, okay, 100, I've got 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I would have made my frequency 4. Then I would have said 200, okay, I've got 1 here, and I would have made it 2. 300, I'm looking for 3s, there's 300. Nope, there's 2 200s. Okay, and that's part of the issue that you have doing it my way, all right, is that if you happen to skip over something, you're going to have to come back, all right. 300, I have 1. 400, I've got 1, 2, 2 400s. 500, I've got 2 of those. 600, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 of those, 5 of those, and 700, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, and I would have come up with the same exact thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So all of these frequencies would equal to should total 20, and I know that I've done it correctly. Okay, that's your double check, is adding up your frequencies to match the number of points, the data points, in this case 20 days, or I could have just taken 5 columns times 4 rows is 20, right? Okay, number 5. Let's see here. What are we going to do here? Yeah, let me do number 5. And then we'll come back with 6, 7, and 8 in the next video. All right. Leeds Company produced the following number of maps during the first 5 weeks of last year. Prepare a bar graph. Okay, so bar graph. We have to, we have 2 axes, an X and a Y axis. And across the bottom, we're going to put our weeks. Okay, these are our weeks. And up the side, we're going to have 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, and 800. Okay, and that's my maps. Okay, so for week 1, we had 800 maps. So my bar, I'd have to create my bar so it goes all the way up to 800. For week number 2, I have 600. So I'd have to come across to wherever 600 was for number 2, for week 2. Week 3, we're looking at 400. So I find my 400 and I go across and I draw my bar. For week 4, I'm talking about 700. So it has to be above, I'm going to come straight across here. So it's a little bit short of the 800, but it's a little bit above the 600. And number 5, I have 300. So I go right across from 300. And then, of course, I can color all of those in to make it a little bit more visual. Okay. And I've created myself my bar graph. Love coloring, so don't mind me playing here, okay? But really, that's just about all there is to it. I mean, you have 2 sets of information. You have weeks and maps, and all you're doing is just cross-referencing them. You're putting them, putting one on one axis and putting one on the other axis. The question might become, well, how do you know which one? Well, that's what that's what's being asked for, okay? It said here, Lee produced the following number of maps during the first 5 weeks of last year. Okay, so intuitively we're looking at the weeks, and that's what we want to go across the bottom. All right, I mean, we could have put the weeks up the side, but then our bar graph would have ended up looking like this instead. Okay, and it would have been a sideways bar graph. Same data, it just would have looked differently, right? Because here would have been my weeks, and here would have been my maps. Okay, it would have just been in a different format. That's all. Same kind of bar graph, right? Same information. The only thing that looks different is whether you're looking at it vertically or horizontally. Okay. Right. So with that, I'm going to stop here, and then I'll pick up with number 6 in the next video. Okay.